Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl, and I am taking part in way too many readathons in October. Last year when I made my Victober video, I talked about how it was my first year doing it because I always did the Booty You readathon that Emma at the Bookish Princess used to do. And there was also one called Spooktober that I used to do. And I really loved having that kind of Halloween October theme to a readathon. So this year, as I knew that I wanted to do Victober again, I also was really on the lookout for something that felt really thematic for October. And so I did a search of October readathons and found the TBR Harvest that's hosted by Leandra at the TBR Zero. She's a new channel to me. I'd never seen her before. And I subscribed to her and watched the video for her games that she has for October. They're so creative and so much fun. And so I decided I was for sure going to be doing those. There is an Escape from a Corn Maze, Escape from a Haunted House, and then a Trick or Treat TBR. And I'm actually going to probably be able to do all three because I am going to be using the same books for a lot of the different readathons. So I knew for sure I wanted to do those ones. Then Shatona Havig announced the Anne-Tober readathon. I guess she has done this before, but I'm a new subscriber to her as well. I didn't know it was going to happen until the video went up. I felt like that someone that loves Anne of Green Gables as much as I do, I don't know that I would have an excuse to not take part in Anne-Tober. And so I decided I needed to try to do that one as well. I'm still working on the fall scavenger hunt that Charlene at Coffee and a Book is doing. And that one, thank goodness, is over a few months. And it's really easy because just as you do things, you mark them off. And Chantel at Chantel Reads All Day announced her Cozy Cottage readathon. And it's kind of the same way because she has a prompt for each thing, but you can do an activity or a book that matches it. I didn't pick any prompts for either of those because I'm just going to mark them off as I go and see if I can get any and how many I can get. But then Katie at Paperbacks and Ponytails is also doing her Journey Through the Bible readathon, and I thought that looked like a lot of fun. And then it was just announced that The Writing Songbird and Lovely Day with Holly and Celestria and Christy A. Cole are doing the Middle Earth readathon. And I love Lord of the Rings, and that sounded really fun, and I love their prompts. And I found myself wanting to take part in all of these readathons, but also knowing that there's no physical way for me to do it unless I don't do anything else. So I decided I would pick the two that were my main ones, which is going to be Victober and TBR Harvest. And then there are a few books that I am kind of looking forward to reading in October that wouldn't fit either of those. I decided I would just go off those things, and then I would go through all of the other readathon prompts and put in any of those for those prompts and see how far each book can actually get me this month. Then once I finished that, then there were quite a few books that I have as maybes, and so I filled those in the rest of the blank spaces, and I put them in order on my TBR cart in order of importance, how I want to read them. And I'm just going to go and see how far I can get. October does tend to be one of the months that I always read the most. I think it's just because it's such a cozy month to be reading. And I usually pick things that are kind of mysterious and are quicker reads. That is not the case with all of the books I'm picking this month. So I don't know if it'll be the same as it has been in the past. But I'm going to see how many of these I can get through. Victober came at the perfect time for a lot of the books that I wanted to read in October because the British literature course I've been doing, that is the time period I am too. And so I have a lot of books that I was planning on reading next that would fit. And so I put all of those up on the cart as well. And then, like I said, the ones that I wanted to read specifically for October. I'm going to show the pages that I did in my reading journal for each of the readathons. For Victober, this is hosted by Kate Howe, Scallydandling About the Books, Blatantly Bookish, and Katie J. Lumpson. They each have their own prompt, but then there's a few bonus prompts this year. Kate's prompt is read a book where religion is a component. And for this, I'm planning on reading Jane Eyre because I know that there is a lot of religious talk in Jane Eyre. This is a reread for me. I've read it multiple times, and this year I'm going to read the manga classic edition. My oldest daughter has read this. She said it was a good edition, so I have been curious to read it for a while to see how well it lines up with the full novel. And that will make it an easy book to read in a month where I have a lot to read. And since I've already read Jane Eyre multiple times, I didn't feel like I needed to read the full thing for my literature course. Marissa's prompt is read a book that was published serially. As many of you know, I've been reading the Sherlock Holmes books this year, reading through the whole series, and I saved the last two for October. So the next one I'm getting to is the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, And I know that these were printed serially in the Strand magazine. So that is going to count for that. Katie's prompt is read a book that plays with form in some way. I did buy this book a few months ago and have been saving it for October. It's George Macdonald, The Twilight Collection. And this is a collection of stories. It says a quintet of tales showing a ghostlier side to the fantasy master. Drawing on centuries of folkloric tradition, these suspenseful and uncanny stories featuring werewolves, vampires, specters, and portents have all of the hallmarks of the best spine chillers and will be a welcome gift to those who delight in the eerie happenings of the haunted hours. I figured since it's 4 stories in one, then that plays with form. And then Roz's prompt is experience a Victorian drama. So read, watch, or listen to a Victorian play. This is one of the only ones that I'm not 100% sure I will do. I might read an Oscar Wilde play because he's one of my favorites and I absolutely love his plays. And that's something I could do really easy, but I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it. They do have a group read, The Doctor's Wife by Mary Elizabeth Braddon, but I don't own that book, so I'm going to skip it. I'm not going to do the group read. But then there are 2 bonus prompts because of the fact that Jennifer Brooks and Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf both passed away over the last year. They want to honor them. And for Jennifer Brooks, it is Read Something by Wilkie Collins. One of the books that I have been wanting to reread for a very long time is The Woman in White. It's been over 10 years since I read this the last time. So that is what I'm going to read for that prompt. And then for Alice, it is Read Something by Arthur Conan Doyle. And like I said, I'm already reading one of them for Marissa's prompt, but then the last one I have is the Return of Sherlock Holmes. I believe this one may have been published after the Victorian technical dates, but I'm just counting it anyway. And this actually is kind of meaningful because while I didn't know Alice, I did follow her and I did watch some of her videos. But when I was preparing to read Sherlock Holmes this year, her channel, she was the one that had made a video about the best order to read Sherlock Holmes in, and that's what I've been following. So I love being able to finish out my Sherlock Holmes goal for the bonus prompt for her. And then there are quite a few other books I'm going to try to get to this month that would count for Victober. I'll mention those as I go along. But for the TBR Harvest game, the first game is Escape from the Corn Maze. And with this, there is this board game. So I filmed myself playing the game and writing down the prompts that I landed on. So I will show that to you now. All right, here we go. 6. That gets me to C-A-N-T in the title. And I can collect that cat as well as the mostly black cover cat at the same time if I find one with this in the title that also has a mostly black cover. Roll number 2. 6 again. That brings me to new to you author. But if I want to collect this cat, that book also has to have a cat in the book. Number 3. 5. So that brought me to Escape the Haunted House, which means I have to do a prompt from this one. And so I'll look at those prompts later and figure out which prompt I'm going to do. And then also if I want to collect this cat, that book will also have to have a cat on the cover. Number 4. That's 3. So that brings me to under 300 pages. Number 5. 2. That brings me to the last cat I need to collect, Witchy Vibes. Number 6. 3. 1, 2, 3. That will get me through the corn maze. So for the first roll, I got a C, A, and a T in the title, and a mostly black cover, and a haunted house on the cover. If I wanted to collect those 2 cats, because one of the cats had 2 prompts, and I think I forgot to mention that in the video. It did say in the rules there were 6 prompts to read for the cats, but you only had to get 5. I'm sure that's because the one cat does have the 2 different prompts. So I wanted to try to find something with 3, but I couldn't find anything that I had on my TBR that fit all 3. So I'm going with just the C-A-N-T in the title and the mostly black cover, and I can use the Twilight collection for that. If I come up with a book before then that does have all 3, then I can switch it out. Roll number 2 had a new to you author and a cat in the book. This is another book that would count for Victober. I'm hoping to read The Jungle Book. I've never read that, and I've never read any other books by Kipling. That has been on my shelves for a very long time, and if it's anything like the Disney movie, then there's a big cat. I'm going to count that. Roll number 3, I landed on the Escape the Haunted House square, which means I have to do a prompt from the other game, Escape the Haunted House, so I'll get to that in a minute. But it also needs to have a cat on the cover, and so I chose this really small little book that I've had since I was a kid. It is one that I like to reread every few years, just for fun, in October. The Dollhouse Caper by Jean S. O'Connell, and it does have a cat there on the table. And then, like I said, I'll mention in a minute what it is good for on the other one. But that will be a really easy book. I can read it in probably 15-20 minutes. It's very short. Then rule number 4 is a book under 300 pages. I'm going to use the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes for that. And then number 5 is I got witchy vibes. I was hoping to get to Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire in September, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to. So I'm going to have this as one of the first books I read in October, and this obviously has witchy vibes. So if I get all of those read, then I will have escaped the corn maze. Then for the Escape the Haunted House, she has a house and then the little prompts for each room in the house. And you could do this really short and take a shorter route out of the house, or you can do longer ones. I did a slightly longer one without, I think I'm only missing one room. So if I don't read all of these, then I'll try to tweak it to make sure I get out with one of the shorter ways. For the attic, you're supposed to read a prompt from another readathon. So I'm going to use Jane Eyre for that. I'm not going to go through the entire prompt. Go to her YouTube channel, and then you can go to see all of these adorable printouts that she's made, and then you can read the whole entire prompt. But for the chimney, I would need a dark cover. So I'm going with the Twilight collection again for that. And then I go to a fireplace and I need something in a series. So I'm using one of the Sherlock Holmes books for that. And then I'm going up in the chimney again. And so I need a hyped title. I pre-ordered Jamie Jo Wright's new books, Specters in the Glass House. So that should be here by then. And that's what I'm going to use for that. Then it's the bathroom and it says, I see dead things. And for that, I'm going to use Return of Sherlock Holmes. After that, I go into the library. It's Biblio Story. And for that, I'm using another Victober book that's in my literature course. That is a short one that I can read pretty quickly. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is also a reread. And then number 7 is going into the bedroom. And it says something relating to superstition. And I'm going to use The Woman in White for that. And then number 8 is a staircase. That is a mood read. And so I'm going to use Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire for that one because I'm in the mood to read it. And then number 9 is a theater movie related, and so I can use Jungle Book for that one. Number 10 is a seance room, but I just put fake seance room because obviously I don't believe in those kind of things. But it's a supernatural vibes for that. This is another one I don't know if I'm going to get to it or not. For the literature course, since it's reading all the Brontes, I really do want to reread Wuthering Heights. I've been wanting to reread this for a very long time as well. And there's kind of supernatural vibes to it. With it being so long and with so many books, I don't know if I'm going to get to it. But that's the one I'm hoping to read for that. And then it's another staircase for under 300 pages. And for that, I'm going to use that Dollhouse Caper that I was using for the Escape the Corn Maze. So that's how I'm going to fit that prompt into this game. The last room before I would get to the door is the kitchen, and it says food on the cover. And there is a short little middle grade book that I picked up recently, The Tattooed Potato by Ellen Raskin, and I loved the Westing game, so I'm surprised that I never had heard of this or have read it, and so I picked that up. It's pretty short. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very easy, quick read. I can probably read it in a day or so, and I figured since potato, the word potato is on the cover, that counts. If I get all those, I'll be able to get out of the haunted house. Then there's the Trick or Treat TBR. This is one where, as I'm reading, whenever anything happens in the books I'm reading, I will just mark it off. It doesn't have to be a separate book. I'm just going to see how many of them I can get. So then comes Anne-Tober. The first prompt for that is Call Me Anne with an E, and what you're supposed to do for that is to read an ebook. I don't read ebooks. I have a very hard time engaging with anything on a screen when I'm reading. So if it's longer than a page, I print it out and read it that way. So that one is one I know for sure I'm not going to do. So I decided to look back at last year's to see what the prompt was for Call Me Anne with an E then, and it was a book starting with E. And I don't have any books that were on my TBR that start with that either. So I thought if I get to Wuthering Heights, I might cheat a little bit and count it since the author's name starts with an E. We'll see. Number 2 is Kindred Spirits, a book with special friendship. So I'll be using Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes for that. Number 3, I suppose it was a romantic way to perish, a book with romantic sensibilities. So I'm going to use Jane Eyre for that. Number 4, some books are best left on the shelf. It's been on your TBR a long time, using Jungle Book for that. Number 5, I'm so glad we live in a world with Anne-Tobers, and that's a free space. So I will just pick one of the books I get done to fit there. Number 6, it is ever so much easier to be good if your clothes are fashionable, a great cover. And I'm choosing that Twilight collection because I really do like the cover of that book. Number 7, No Mistakes, a book that takes place in a school. I'm going to use Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire for that. And then number 8, When Your Imaginations Come True, a dream come true novel. So this is one of the books that I was hoping to read in October that I may or may not get to. It's Midnight Sun. Last year, I reread Twilight, and I wanted to reread all the series. Then I didn't. And so now that it's been over a year, I thought instead of just picking up at New Moon, I would reread Midnight Sun and then go on from there. This was the book that made me like Edward better. I did not like Edward my first time through Twilight. I'm definitely Team Jacob, but this book made me look at Edward differently. So I actually think it'd be really fun to reread this, and the reason I would pick it for Dream Come True, I think Bella would look at it that way. Number 9 is Life is Worth Living as Long as There is a Laugh in It, an author who makes you laugh. And for that, I chose The Tattooed Potato because the Westing game made me laugh. So I'm assuming The Tattooed Potato will too, I hope. Then, as I said, the Cozy Cottage Readathon and the Fall Scavenger Hunt, I'm just going to mark those off as I go. Anytime I finish a book, I will check and see if it matched any of those and mark them off. And then the journey through the Bible. Katie has groupings of a question, and then there's different prompts and you can choose which one. So the first one is, where are you going? I chose a female main character, so I can use Jane Eyre for that. Then, what are you hunting for? Then I chose Pharaoh's Tomb because as a male main character, so I can use Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes for that. Who are you going to meet? Mummy? Wipe the dust off the oldest book on your TBR because Jungle Book is one of the books I've owned the longest without reading. And then Booby Traps. I'm going to probably use The Tattooed Potato for a book you can finish in one day. It's filling with sand. That's my trap, but I'm not sure. That may change. And then How Do You Escape? So for that, I think I'm going to use Specters in the Glass House and either have a bullwhip, which is snag a popular new release, or using a book and ask a friend to pick your book because a lot of people recommended her to me. I don't know if I'll use that or not. But the other two I may end up using as well. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm using for the Escape book yet. That's my tentative plan. And then the last one is the Middle Earth Readathon. There's 9 prompts for this. And the first one is Legolas, Tariel, and Killy, a book with a love triangle. So I might use Wuthering Heights for that if I'm able to get to it, but I'm not 100% sure. Then Gimli and Legolas, a book with unlikely best friends. I'm going to use Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes for that. An Unexpected Journey, a book where they go on a journey. Another one of the books I would use for Victober, that's a book I've had a long time that I really want to get to, is Journey to the Center of the Earth. If I somehow manage to get to that one, then I will use it for that prompt. Shield Maiden, a book with a strong feminine lead. I'm going to use Jane Eyre. Samwise Gamgee, a book with an unlikely hero. I'm going to use Return of Sherlock Holmes. Second Breakfast, a book that is a sequel. I couldn't remember if they said it had to be a second book or if it could be a book in a series that is a sequel. I thought I might use the Harry Potter Order of the Phoenix, but if that doesn't work, then I might not be able to do it or I'll figure something else out. Aragorn and Arwen, a book with an epic love story. For that, I chose Midnight Sun, even though I don't know if I would classify it as an epic love story. I just thought it probably counts because I think a lot of people would look at it that way. So may or may not change that. Gandalf the Grey, a book with a mentor. I'm going to use Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire because there is a mentor there in that book. And then my precious, your most prized book, I will be reading the Bible every day like I always do. So I just chose that. There's 3 more books I would really love to be able to read in October, but I kind of doubt that I'm going to be able to get through all of those ones. And if I do, I have Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy. This one is for my literature course. So I may get to that if I have time. And then when I went in the Second and Charles to get The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, they had a copy of The Moonstone. And this one I've never read. So I would love to get to this too, but it's very big. So I probably won't. I need to be more realistic. I look at it and I think, sure, I can read all of these, but I probably can't. And especially this one is also very big. The next one after Goblet of Fire is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And I was hoping to get to this one in October because I wanted to finish out the series this year. And since I thought that this would be the one I would be at by the time October started, then that would leave 3 books and 3 months. But I don't know. I probably won't. So those are the 3 that are the very last ones I would get to unless I start reading something and I'm not in the mood and then I move on to something else. One other option that would also be good for Victober is rereading Frankenstein. That's also one of the books in my literature course, but I have read it, so I don't have to read it. I just might try to get to it. And then also throughout the month, along with my Bible reading every morning, I am going to be trying to finish Joy in Christ's Presence by Charles Spurgeon. I've been reading this for a few months now, but I've been reading through it very slowly. And so I'm hoping to finish that up in October. That's it. That is the way too many readathons I'm trying to take part in. That is the way too many books I'm trying to read. And I am kind of excited to see how many of these I can actually get through. I'd love to hear if you are also overwhelmed with the amount of readathons happening in October this year, how many you are taking part in, if any, and what books you're the most excited for October.